We are live. All right, we're live. Cool. So Jason Hull here with the DoorGrow Show, and I'm hanging out with Empire Industries, and we've got Steve Rozenberg and Pete Newbig hanging out here with us. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hello, gentlemen.
Are you going for gentlemen?
He said, "Say hello, gentlemen."
There you go. All right. So guys, I know you've been dealing with a lot of stuff down in Houston. I mean, Houston is the fourth largest city in the world, right? It's massive, and a lot of it just got doused with water, like it's underwater. And so I was really curious about having you on and finding out like what's been going on down there. What are you dealing with, and what have you learned? And I think the audience is especially interested in what can they get from you, because some other people, it looks like Florida might get hit, and there's been areas that have gotten hit with tornadoes in the past. California could have an earthquake. I mean, there's all kinds of disasters that could happen in the future, and property management, more than most industries, gets heavily hit by this, and this is something big for people to be prepped for and to deal with. So first, tell us a little bit about what's going on down there from your perspective.
Good.
Sure. Well, obviously, we're day 10 now since the beginning of the hurricane, and it's still a complete mess down here. Lots of roads are closed. There's traffic. People starting to try to get back to work. There's still properties that we manage that we cannot access because we still can't get to the houses because of the water. We actually had people flooding like days after the hurricane when the rain stopped. And so it really is, and that's because they were opening up all of the reservoirs and the dams doing controlled flooding. So it's really sad to see a lot of houses go down, but I've heard anywhere from 20%, 10 to 20% of homes have been affected in one way or the other in Houston.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say, Jason, is when you see a hurricane coming, and I grew up in California, where you're at, and when an earthquake happens, you don't know it's coming; it just happens, right? So you just know it happened, right. And then you're dealing with the after effect of the disaster. I've noticed here is when you have a hurricane coming, you're kind of watching it, and you're watching it. And, everybody becomes an expert of tracking winds and saying, well, the winds are coming from the northwest now, so it may not hit us. And I think, deep down, everybody hopes that it's not going to hit them, or at least they deep down want to believe that it's not going to do. The news is overhyping it, which we all know happens. And you're kind of hoping it's not going to happen or not be as bad. And I think part of that when that happens is you don't have a disaster preparedness plan, because you're thinking, how bad can it really be? I've been in a hurricane before. It wasn't really that bad. It was overhyped. And as Pete and I can attest, what people saw on the news was legitimately that bad here. I mean, it wasn't that it was the wind and the hurricane ravaging. It was really the rain. And you just pushed that much water into an area, there's just nowhere for it to go. So it doesn't matter where you are. And if, we have a disaster plan, but like a lot of property management companies, it's something we bought at one point. We put it in a file. We never looked at it. And then all of a sudden when the hurricane was coming, it was like, hey, where's that document that we have that we send to owners, that we send to tenants? Oh, it's still generalized. We need to make it Empire type where they actually have contact numbers. And so that's kind of what we went through of dealing with that type of mental gymnastics of, is it not going to hit us? I think it's going to hit us. How bad is it going to be? And then when it actually hit, then it was like, okay, we need to spring into action, and speed is going to be the key of surviving this. And I know that a lot of people on Facebook saw me and they saw the videos and stuff, and that was kind of my role. Pete's role in the company is really the backbone of the operation, in the effect that he's the one that actually sat down and came up with the plan and started delegating tasks, because when you have this huge elephant, how do you eat it, right? It's the old saying, one bite at a time. And what Pete did is Pete basically broke down systematically all the different problems that we had, meaning we had houses that were flooded, we had vacant properties, We had people that we couldn't contact. What else did we have?
Damaged properties, probably people that called in and basically was reporting damage.
Yeah, and Pete can kind of touch on this a little bit more, but he basically stepped in and started dissecting these into smaller issues that we could tackle, as opposed to saying, okay, we've got this huge behemoth of a problem. How do we handle it? So as property managers, he's kind of the one that stepped in and said, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to separate it out, and this group is taking this task, this group is taking this task, and so on, because that's what you have to do. And this was really day 2. I mean, this was like in the heat of it all coming down. We were like, okay, we need to come up with a plan here, because when we get pushed out of the backside of this thing, it's going to be chaos. And people are going to, we're going to have owners calling us, we're going to have tenants calling us, we're going to have vendors. We got to have a plan.
So a lot of this was divide and conquer. You're like, all right, let's take this, let's break it into separate things. So maybe could you share a little bit then, Pete, what are some of this, how did you divide this up?
Sure. Well, I think for anybody who's listening to the show right now, watching. I forgot to go into makeup.
They'll be listening later anyway, so you can say.
For anybody watching or listening to the show, I think the first thing was there's some prerequisites that have to occur. And for us, it was notifying our clients, which are owner clients and resident clients, on how we were going to communicate with them throughout the process. We felt that email was not the right communication, because when we sent an email, when people would reply, it would go to the person who sent that email, and then you would be inundated with all of these emails. So we chose to use our portal on our property management software and Facebook. We created a Facebook group for owners, and we created a Facebook group for residents. And we've always had them, but they were never as prevalent as we used them during this tragedy or during this storm. And so also we also made sure that all of the team had a way to communicate. So how are we going to get our message to the team if we were going to be open or not open? So we decided to use Google Hangouts with an Uber conference. With an Uber conference, so that everybody could get on. We found quickly that our free conference number that comes with our VoIP did not handle more than about 10 or 15 people connecting to it. So our first conference call while the storm was going on was a mess, and people texting each other saying, I can't get on. And so we quickly had to devise a different strategy. So before a storm even hits, you want to make sure that you can, 1, communicate with your owners and residents, and 2, communicate with your vendors and make sure you communicate with your team. So we unfortunately for us, we didn't do that until like over the weekend when the storm touched down. And then we quickly created those systems in place. The next thing we did was we had a major conference call with 25 people on the call, which was too much. And so we realized very quickly that we had to create project managers for each project. For example, we had a list of homes that were that no one called us, and we had non-contacted homes, we called them. So residents were in the house, but they never contacted us. So we actually gave that to one of our salespeople, and then we basically said, hey, you're this person, you're going to be in charge, you're the project manager, and these are the resources. And the first conference call, we were asking for volunteers, and we quickly realized that it was so chaotic. People were talking over each other, nobody was really volunteering. So I quickly took matters, and I just said, basically like the old saying, if there's an emergency, you don't ask somebody to call 911. You point to somebody, say, you call 911, and somebody will call it. So we decided, you, Alvin, you're this project manager. You, Megan, you, Margot, you are the resources for this project manager. And we were able to get
delegating rather than asking for volunteering. And this is
absolutely you can't worry about people's feelings at this point in time. You just have to make sure that you have the resources and that they have the resources to get things done. So the first thing we made sure is make sure everybody in your team is okay, right? So we made sure everybody on the team was okay. Who was displaced, who didn't have a car, who couldn't get to their house, who had flood damage, whoever it was. And then we realized, okay, maybe those folks are out of the mix for a few days at least. And maybe those are resources that we can't tap into. So we had to understand what resources we actually had. Once we figured all that out, what I did is I took my properties from our property management software and I downloaded them into a spreadsheet. From there, we basically created some tabs, right? So one is the occupied tab, and then we had the vacant tab. We felt it was very important that we walk those vacants as soon as possible. We knew from how big the storm was going to be that there was going to be a shortage of housing. And so we wanted to make sure that we could provide housing for people. If we could not get to those houses, those vacant homes, and know that they were, quote, high and dry or rent ready, we wouldn't be useful in this time of a tragedy. So we actually walked over 90 properties in like 4 days to get them on a list. I'll let Steve talk about how we communicated that list and how we partnered with other management companies. But what I did on the backside is then we started calling every resident. We then told all of our owners through portal and through Facebook, please don't call us right now as we are gathering information on your homes. We are still not open, but we're working. And that bought us about a day to contact as many residents. Once residents were contacted, we moved them to another list. They either were contacted and the list was, they reported damage, so they went on a damage list, or they reported they were okay, and that went on the okay list. We then had project managers that called the okay list to let the owners know the good news. And we had project managers that had a team that called the damage list, just let them know, we don't know the extent, we know there's damage, we're bringing work orders, and as soon as our vendors can get out there, we'll get out there.
And Kate, a couple things I just want to touch on before we get too far away. A couple things that Pete did that I would advise property managers is every time that we got on the conference line and got on the conference call, he made sure to ask each one of the team members how they were doing, like personally, because you got to understand, even though, you know, we have a full staff complement here at Houston, we have team members in Dallas where we're opening operations. We have team members in Mexico and the Philippines. So we understand they're going to be okay. But the people in Houston that are actually there dealing with it also, like Pete said, I mean, we had people that our marketing guy, he got flooded, his car got flooded. We had one of our property managers, she was like, as she was on the phone, she said, I just got noticed that they have to
mandatory evacuation.
Mandatory evacuation. So, you know, these people are going through their own drama as they're trying to help out the company. So, you know, Pete did a really good job of asking them, you know, do you need anything? Do you need any resources personally? You know, and that was, I think, a big help. The other thing he had mentioned about the owners and speed of contacting them. We knew that they were going to contact us pretty soon. So, and especially if they have a vacant property, our main thing that we wanted to do was we wanted to be proactive and get to them first. So we wanted to make sure that we were the ones reaching out to them. Even if we didn't have an answer, we were still reaching out to them saying, look, we don't know. And, you know, some of them, they would see the news and they would see like, oh, it stopped raining. Well, that doesn't mean that we could get to any properties because anyone that's been in a flood area, that's kind of residual. It takes a couple days for that after effect to happen where all of a sudden roads that weren't flooded were now flooded. And so, you know, Pete would send me daily updates that I would blast on Facebook and on the company portal and all that stuff to owners saying, look, the storm is not over. Like, we understand your properties got damaged. However, we can't get to them. Now,
nor could our vendors.
Nobody could get to them. And the other thing that we did that Pete was really good at is, you know, when we identified the properties that were damaged, let's say a house took on some water, either we called the tenant and we got an update, or Pete walked the property, or somebody, one of the agents, somebody walked the property. I was the one that had to actually call the owners. That was my job, is calling the owners and giving them the bad news, like, hey, sorry to tell you this, but your house flooded, you know, and then they're going through the mental gymnastics of what are they going to do. Some of the owners we'd call and say, look, the tenant said that your property took on water, it's leaking in the ceiling. I would say best course of action is concerned. We don't know how much water came in. You may want to start the claim process now. I don't know if there is a claim or there isn't, but I don't want to be the one to tell you don't file the claim. So I would err on the side of caution. Just because there was so much water coming in on that day, just because it's a roof leak, we don't know where else it leaked. So I would just tell the owners, you know what, you may want to start the process if it was me. And even if they didn't have flood insurance, I would tell them, talk to your insurance provider, because they could call it flood storm damage. I mean, I'm not an insurance agent, and I'm not trying to tell them what to do, but I'm trying to let them know, look, you got to think a little outside the box and be creative to talk to your agent to say, look, is there any coverage here that is covered, or is there not? But don't just assume that because you don't have flood insurance that your house isn't covered. So those are just two things I wanted to bring up that was important, that we got out in front of it to these owners.
Yeah, the other thing too is once, again, personally, we believed as a company to walk the vacants as quickly as possible, because we knew there was going to be a shortage, and we wanted to take advantage of two things. One, goodwill to let residents or displaced folks move into rent-ready homes, and two, to take advantage of getting our homes all leased up. As a management company, we make our money when rent is collected. Well, I can promise you that we're not going to collect as much rent this month as we did in August or July, just because people they're out of work, or they're not back at their house yet, or whatever it is. It's going to take us a while to get that rent. So the leasing fees that you get will help sustain your business as you're moving forward.
Yeah.
We felt that was more important than walking any kind of flood or damaged homes, because there's nothing we can do for those homes anyway. So we did partner with a inspection company. I would recommend that that anybody out there can partner with an inspection company, and the inspection company can go out instead of creating a claim. The inspection company could go out for a small fee and actually do a complete inspection on the property, doing a thermal diagnostic is what they call it. And then from there, you know exactly what's going on with the property. So now you can have an owner can make a very good decision, because you don't have to file that claim right away. Right. So I'd say that those are a couple of things, and that's the reasoning behind what we thought and why we walked the vacants before we walked any damaged properties.
Love it, guys. So let's recap some of the stuff. So you mentioned that, like, the first thing you did is you made sure that you had communication channels in place, and you didn't have those in preparation. So question about that: are these Facebook groups going to be a liability moving forward? Like, all the tenants are in the same group, will they be able to communicate with each other? Is that going to be a problem?
I mean, to me, that's a byproduct. If you're giving a good product and you're doing good service, people are going to talk to each other if they want to. If you're a crappy company and people don't like you, you can't stop them. It's kind of like serving bad Italian food. Eventually, people are going to know you have a bad Italian restaurant, right? So we're not concerned about that. I mean, this was more. I mean, obviously, you can shut the page down if you want, or whatever you want to do, but that was not a concern of ours.
We just felt it was we wanted one-way communication. We didn't want necessarily two-way communication at this point. We didn't want our property managers and our assistants get inundated with a bunch of residents or owners asking questions that we don't have answers to right now. We just needed to do a due diligence. Our discovery phase was probably about 4 days. So Hurricane Harvey hit over the weekend, and it took us from Monday, nothing. We were shut down. We were like everybody else, hunkered down. Tuesday, it was still raining, still flooding. We started working. From Tuesday to Friday, we walked 90 properties. We talked to over 600 residents, and we talked to the majority of our owners, if not all of our owners. And we had updates on, I would say, 75 to 80% of our properties. Yeah. Maybe not a full update, but we had some updates, and everybody was touched within those 4 days. So we felt Facebook was the way to go, and our portal was the way to go. Because if you send an email from your management software, like let's say I sent an email from my management software, everybody that replies to that email to my email box. And now I have 1,000 emails that I'm never going to get through. And it wasn't the right, it just wouldn't have been.
You can't you can't go at a massive level,
yeah.
And, the other part that Pete was saying is, we knew that we were going to have a lot of these tenants that were going to need a place to live. I mean, we had 40 something properties go underwater, and a lot of, other properties that were just damaged. So that's why we took the tact of, I first got in touch with Rich Drake, and I talked with Renters Warehouse about sharing a list, and we had already gotten proactive. Speed to me is the key. So we got out there with the videos. We got out there being proactive, so we came up with the idea of creating Hurricane Harvey landing page, and it's not pretty, but it's functional. And that's where we started throwing good to know information on our website of like, if your car is towed, what is the number to call the towing company that maybe towed your car? FEMA numbers, insurance, and then
whatever information that we were getting from owners or from other property management companies or from TAR and HAR, whatever we got, we would dump it in there. Like, how to get up to $1,000, from FEMA or something.
Yeah,
I mean, just all sorts of small
We're
things.
trying to be a portal. So then we came up with the idea of, hey, let's utilize our resources, and we've got our agents. We're using Facebook and social media to promote the fact that we have properties. So then we combined forces. We basically created a list of properties with our properties and their properties. We took it a step further that we waived all of our application fees. So, obviously we don't want to look like we're gouging people, and, not that we're doing that by charging an application fee, but by easing that barrier to entry and tell people, look, we will waive all the application fees. We'll eat that cost of background. We're still keeping our standards up, but we'll waive that to get you in the property. We're doing a better service for our owner clients, and we're doing a service for the tenants because they need a place to live. Then we basically, with us and renters, we doubled our size. And then we reached out to a couple other Terra and RPM and some other guys we know here in Houston. And we basically kept combining forces, building this list, which is basically a Google Doc. And again, it's not pretty, but it's functional. And then we just, we talked to Brad Larson over in San Antonio today, and he gave us a list of his properties, because I don't know if you caught what Pete said earlier, is 20% or so, maybe more, properties are taken out of inventory. So it's not like these people have a place to go now. They don't have any housing here in Houston for them to rent. So a lot of these people are going to have to relocate, at least temporarily, to another city. And they're going, there's nowhere for me to move. The apartment, there's full apartment complexes that are being condemned because they're saying the mold is going to be so bad you can't fix it. So they're in their older properties or whatever the case may be, but there's a lot of inventory that is now out of the market. So getting people like Brad, and we're going to get some people in Dallas as well, and just keep compiling that on our list so that people can just go to one place to find properties and not have to go, all over the place looking.
And I'd just like to add, when we waived our application fee, we called our application process AccuTrack, and we asked them to lower their fee as well, which they did.
Yeah.
So they lowered their fee. So we're covering a small cost for people to apply, and that's kind of our way of giving back.
Yeah.
What I told my team is, during a crisis, everybody wants to donate time and they want to help people. And I told my team the way we help people this week and next week is by doing our job. My wife was out of work for a week, and she went and helped some people with donations, or she cut down some sheetrock and she was helping people. And yeah, we'd love to all give back that way, but we're in property management, we're in real estate. Our job was to walk properties, to take care of our residents, and take care of our owners. And the better we can do that, the better we're helping our fellow residents,
yeah, our
fellow Houstonians.
It's more on a massive level than a singular level. If we can help, like I think we've gotten 43 properties rented in the last week of our own vacant properties, not counting what the agent's done or whatever.
Our app processor is very busy right now.
Yeah, so instead of us going out, Pete and I going out and helping clean up one property, we've been able to give housing to 43. And we'll probably have all of our vacants full within the next week or so. And then we're going to start, and obviously we're helping other property managers get theirs leased and all that. So we feel by us doing our role, and property managers out there, the guys in Florida and up on the East Coast, your job is better spent, your per minute time is better spent working on the massive, not on the minor.
And I have a tendency to get into the very details of stuff. Like I was walking property, and as the CEO of the company, you still need to do that on a small level, like to show everybody I'm also in this, right? So I walk the properties, but at some point I had to pull myself out of the details and be the leader on a grander scale. And so if you're a property management company and this is happening, don't get caught up in, you're the one that has to do everything. If you're that owner of that company, you need to utilize your resources. My time was better spent chopping that spreadsheet up, creating property, project manager roles and giving them resources and then holding people accountable. And because of that, my time, that was much better spent than me walking properties. which I still did, but that was much better spent. So you have to think of that, what Steve says, that per minute time.
Yeah, and to the property managers out there that are smaller, that they may say, I only have 1 or 2 people, you would be amazed if you grabbed people and said, hey, I need you to help me and do this. You would be amazed at how many people would step in and help you, that they're not necessarily employees, but that should give you an indication of how you're going to be able to grow your own company by having that team concept. And, you know, Pete and I are very big in leveraging our time and having that team. That's another conversation, but this just goes to show you that there's no way that we could have gotten 700 properties under control that were flooding all this if it was just Pete or myself. I mean, we've got realtors, we've got property managers, we have, you know, like I said, we have a team in Mexico, we have a team in the Philippines, we've got our property managers up in Dallas. I mean, so we used every resource we could think of. We reached out to everybody. I mean, we even leveraged other management companies by saying, can we use some of your properties? And we even reached out to self-do-it landlords and said, hey, if you have a property and you want us to lease it for you, we'll throw it on our list. So they're using leverage of us, you know, getting the property leased, but we're using them because we're getting volume. So it's kind of a good lesson for the smaller do-it-yourself property managers, that the only way you can grow, especially or deal with an emergency, is the use of leverage.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I love how you approached it with your team. I mean, it sounds like an overall principle that you employed was putting your own oxygen mask on first before trying to take care of everybody else. So first it was like, are we okay as a team? All right, what resources do we have? Now let's go see who we can help. And you guys took a really prominent leadership role in this space. Why do you think you guys did this and led sort of this movement and not other companies? Like what did you have in place that enabled you to do this?
I've got a theory, but I'll let you say yours.
My theory is we actually dedicated somebody to do that. So Steve became our communications, you know, project manager. And so under that role, he was not only, you know, making sure the communication was to our residents, our owners, and even our vendors, but also to get out there to everybody out there. And so we actually dedicated a resource for that role.
I think, and Jason, you and I talked about this a little bit last time, is, you know, Pete and I look at ourselves as business owners, not just property managers. And I think, you know, because we're coached by a business, just like people that go to you for coaching, you know, we've learned to grow our company as business owners and not doers. And so Pete and I focus a lot of time of working on the business and not in the business. So when it came to this issue or this disaster, we just kind of said, okay, you know, I'm not going to be the one doing it. I'm going to be the one delegating it. And I think that's just from the years of being coached and learning self-development stuff of going, okay, if I'm going to be a leader, how does the leader do it? And a leader leads by leading and being that person. Because like Pete said, in the time of disaster and emergency, everybody is looking for that leader, and they're looking for that person to say, somebody tell me what to do. And if Pete was knee deep running around and stuff, and they were like, where's Pete? And Pete's, you know, pulling people out of floods and doing this and that, then nothing would have gotten done here. And at some point, someone has to be the leader. And I think the way that we run our business is through leverage and through team. And that's just the way our structure and our culture is. And I don't know, that's my thought.
Because both of you have all that leverage, you have the bandwidth to shift your focus and shift your focus to this rather than, okay, we need to like keep our business afloat. You have a support system and a structure in place that enables you to already do that.
Yeah. And you know, what's funny is a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of people out there are saying, yeah, that's easy for them to say because they have the staff and they have all the things. Well, from day one, when we hired our first employee, we didn't have the money to hire our first employee, but we knew we couldn't afford not to do it. And we just kept going on that business model of saying, you know what, you know, how can I take a couple more minutes out of my day and a couple more minutes? And it's a matter of hiring and leverage and hiring. And, you know, we sometimes systems and policies, procedures. And, you know, we have a business coach that we go to and every week we're accountable for. And, you know, I remember Pete one day said, man, you know, our payroll is almost $60,000 a month. And our business coach says, I hope pretty soon it's over $200,000 a month, because that means you guys are that much bigger. So it's a different way to look at it than saying, oh man, I don't know how to do this. You know, we're spending $20,000 a month in marketing. And he says, well, pretty soon you'll be spending $50,000 a month. That just means you're going to have 5,000 doors. So it's just a number when you're, and it's just a different way to look at things. And this disaster was a true test that the reason that we got out of this in front of everyone else is because we were looking at it from a leverage standpoint, not a doer. And if the other property management people we know that were doing, they were in the middle of it and they were like, I don't have time to do this or do that, or think of creating a landing page, or Pete and I did a PSA, public service announcement commercial last week that's going to get blasted all over the TV stations. If we were in the heat of battle pulling people out of floods, we wouldn't be able to think of these strategic ways to be better. Agree?
Absolutely. Also, I want to say, if you're not on a voice over IP system, our office never shut down, Jason. Even Monday, when the flood was going on, we had our phone system stayed up because it's VoIP, and we have assistants that answer the phone, whether it's a leasing call or just a regular property management call. They're in Mexico and in the Philippines. So, when you called our number Monday when Hurricane Harvey was touching down or the rain was coming down, our office was open. We had physically shut the office, but we had our phone systems going up and running the whole time.
Yeah, and we know a couple other people in Houston that did not have, they don't have the VoIP type phone system, and they were dead in the water. They couldn't get to their office and they couldn't get into their phone lines at all. And so that was another lesson we learned.
We had like a 4-day head start on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. So I love the idea of leverage with a team. I think a mistake people make in hiring and as they build their company, they think, oh, I need to build out some big organizational structure and then I need to fill these roles. The way I look at it is it's all who's the most important person in the business? The most important person in the business is the entrepreneur. That's the person that drives it. That's the person that does it. And so if that person takes a viewpoint of how can I create leverage? What do I need to get off my plate? What am I not good at? What don't I enjoy doing? And they hire based on that. They're constantly getting stuff off their plate so that they can then support their team. But you'll see business owners build their whole business in a totally different fashion to that. And it doesn't matter how many doors they have. They might still build it so that the whole universe rides on their shoulders. And
what a lot of people do is, they try to offload it, and maybe they don't do it correctly, or they don't task it correctly. They don't train the person correctly. That person screws up. They get the heroitis, and they go, you know what? You can't do it as good as me. Get out of the way. I'm going to do it because you just can't do it. And then
the bigger they get, they become the hub, and everything has to go through them. And then they get burnt out.
And then they're the bottleneck. They're the reason the company can't grow, is because they're constantly going, you know what, they just can't sell as good as me, or they just, they just don't know how to do it. And the reality is it goes back on the person saying, well, you didn't train them correctly. It's really a bad leader.
Or hire the right person.
Or hire the right person, the right disc profile, or any of those things. But, it showed that by us having this disaster happen, by us being able to step in and get the team, it was really very interesting, and it was awesome to see how the team, everybody kind of fed off of everybody else, because there was no chaos. We were being proactive, not reactive, so that when things were getting done, everybody was stepping right in play, getting stuff done with no problems or no challenges. And could it have been exactly the way Pete and I would have wanted it done, or the way we think we would have done it? Probably not. But the reality is we were able to 10x what we did by having massive amount of people out there doing stuff, as opposed to just Pete and I banging on the phones all day. We'd still be on the phones,
Yeah, I think a lot of business owners look at themselves like Atlas, holding the entire world on their shoulders. And really, if you build a really good team and a good support system in your business, it's a situation in which they're holding you up. And you feel as an entrepreneur supported, and you feel like the pressure and noise gets lower for you as you scale, and you feel like your life is getting tactically easier. And so if your life is getting tactically harder, you're doing it wrong. You're doing something wrong as you scale and grow.
And the definition of a business is a profitable enterprise that runs without you. So when I do speaking events and stuff, and I talk to property managers and stuff, and I'll tell them, who here can leave their company for a month or 2 months or 3 months with no phone, no email, no contact, and come back and your business is bigger than when you left it? And there's probably only about one person still standing when you ask that question. And normally those are people with a lot of staff, because the people that are doing it themselves, they go, well, I don't have enough money. And they always have a reason why it won't work. They never give me a reason why it will work. And in a disaster like this, when something like this happens, they're going to learn that they will run themselves into the ground. I mean, business owners and entrepreneurs don't fail because there's not enough hours in the day. If they needed to work 25 hours in a day, they would. They fail because they have no plan and they have no strategy, and they fail because they don't understand the power of leverage.
Yeah. I'd also add that if this happened to us about 2 years ago, I don't know if we would have made it.
Yeah.
It takes time to build that team, and you have to break a lot of eggs to make that omelet sometimes. And there was a lot of learnings that both Steve and I learned on the initiation process, the hiring process, the personality process, and we're still learning. But we're getting every new hire, every time we replace somebody, we just get better at it. And I would put my team up against anybody else in the country right now, because I've seen them in action now. And I was teasing somebody's asked me, oh man, you must be so busy right now with this flood. And I was laughing, because I'm like, honestly, I'm actually not that busy. My team doesn't want me around. They want to handle it. And every time I get involved, I just mess something up right now.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. So, well, fantastic. So we talked about dividing and conquering and taking things into bite-sized chunks. And so having somebody at the helm that's able to dedicate their time and attention and resources to coming up with a strategy, you need a general if you're going to have an army. And so I love that you were able to do that. And that, that was probably one of the most critical pieces from my outside perspective as to what made all of this work. And Pete, you being able to figure that out and do that, because people need direction. You can have boots on the ground and everybody's willing to donate time and people are willing to give you resources and even give you properties. But if nobody organizes this stuff, there's just chaos.
Yeah, that spreadsheet that he created with the tabs, I mean, we were living inside that spreadsheet, because, a property would go to unable to contact to all of a sudden that property would go into contacted, damaged. And then it would go somewhere, and then it would go from vacant to take it out of the vacancy. It's no longer vacant. We got it rented. So that spreadsheet, and a simple Google spreadsheet is all you need. But having those tabs, I mean, everybody was in those tabs constantly. I mean, you'd watch that. If you sat back and watched that Google spreadsheet, there must have been 15 people in there moving stuff around constantly. But it was a live, current document, and it literally, as crude as it was, it saved us, And I don't think we could have created something on our own with 6 months of preparation to work as well as that document did, to keep us with some strategy. Sometimes simpler is better, and this definitely was the case.
Hey, Jason, the other thing I want to add is, there can't be two captains at the same time, and so sometimes, especially for those of you watching that are in a partnership, whether it's a husband-wife team or they have partners like Steve and I, business partners, there are times when Steve is the better captain, and I just go ahead and I sit, we call it the chair to the right? First, I become the first officer. And there are times when I have strengths, and Steve has strengths, and my strength is being able to see a whole bunch of stuff and be able to basically in detail iron it out and give it to people and disseminate it. And so Steve, to his credit, allowed me, put his ego aside and allowed me to be that captain where he rode the first officer chair. And if you have two people that are running it, trying to run it, and they have a different vision, he may not have felt that was the right way to go about it, but he had to trust in me and he had to understand that that's my strength and he let me do it. And I think if you're watching this, you need to know what your strengths are, what your business strengths are, what your partner's business strengths are, and allow each other to basically take over the role of leader at that point in time.
Yeah, it's very important. It wouldn't be good if Pete and I are both the owners of the company, and each of us have
50-50 partners, no less.
If all of a sudden Pete got off the phone and I called the agent and said, "Hey, look, this is what I want you to do," there would be a lot of chaos. And we know from knowing a lot of property management companies and people that have called us and asked us for help over the years or come to our office to see how we operate, we'll talk to them, and there's no true leader And it's not that one person has to be the leader at all the time, but for certain circumstances, like when it comes to sales and marketing and vision, that's my role. When it comes to operations, that's Pete's role. And I don't step on his toes and he doesn't step on my toes. And we're very clear, especially in front of the team, to make sure that there's a clear line between what we're doing. Because again, if they see all of a sudden, and don't get me wrong, we were not always this way. I mean, at first we were like Keystone Cops running around, and I would call the maintenance guy, and then the maintenance guy says, oh, Pete already called me to this property, and we're running around, and finally we said, okay, we need to have some roles. We need to, what are you good at, and what do you suck at, and what are you good at, and what do you suck at, and then we said, okay.
Yeah, we think differently. So when I call the maintenance guy and then Steve calls the maintenance guy, we're telling him to tackle the problem two different ways.
Yeah.
And it was chaos.
Yeah.
And so you already take Hurricane Harvey that created chaos. If we were both trying to run the ship, it would have it wouldn't have doubled. It would have exponentially increased.
Yeah. So
chaos.
For the people out there that partnerships, husband, wives, whatever it is, you really want to say, okay, you have to designate the captain in charge for that situation. And Pete was clearly going to be the captain in this situation. And, I reported to him when I was on the phone call, and I had to report what I did. And now offline, Pete and I would have other conversations, but right there for my role, I had to do something. And there was no, I did what he said. Okay, I want you to do this, this, this. He would send me updates. I would post them. And so you want to make sure that with your team, however big or small it is, that you clearly define that, because the last thing you guys want to do is be arguing over who should be sending an email or who's more, up on things during the heat of an emergency.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I've seen a lot of business partnerships that were not equally yoked or not effectively match made, and then I've seen some, dissolve. It's pretty common in business.
Yeah.
And it's ugly. It's like a divorce, it's a painful process. And then I've seen some that work really, really well together. And in fact, when there is a good partnership, it tends to work better than being alone.
Right. I mean, it's one of like
challenge each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Pete said. I mean, we joke if he was in charge of everything, we'd have 5 properties that run perfectly, and nobody would ever call or talk to him. If I was in charge, we'd have 5,000 doors, and it'd be chaos. No systems, no policies. It would just be, people would be stabbing each other in the office, kind of, But and so that's the thing is Pete and I realize that, and the one thing about partnerships, and Pete and I are very good is we don't have any hidden agendas. We both put the company first all the time. Whatever's best for the company, we eat last. The leaders eat last. We make sure everyone's paid. We make sure everyone's taken care of. That's just how we operate, and that's how we operate our business. And it's been proven to be very successful for us. And when it comes to helping people, property managers, and we reached out at NARPM, and we got a lot of people when we first started to help us. So we always pay it forward to other people, and we always help people, and people will call us and ask us, and that's just kind of, we're a small group, property managers. There's not a lot of us out there, even in Australia, the good friends I have down there. I mean, I share ideas with them when I go speak down there and stuff. And so it's nice that everybody has the greater good of what you're doing in your company always first and foremost in mind, and especially in a disaster. I mean, when it's hitting the fan and you guys got to start delegating, you can't have an ego of saying, well, I don't like the way you talk to me, I'm in charge too. You got to put that aside,
So one of the secret ingredients that you guys have that enabled you to be able to deal with this disaster, take a leadership role, and, get lots of free publicity, which obviously wasn't probably intentional at the beginning, but I'm sure you got that. And there's, some upsides to all of this for you guys, is that you have somebody, both of you have somebody that can question you, that can say no to you, that can call you out on your BS.
Yeah.
And, a lot of business owners don't have that. They have nobody if they're on their own. And their spouse might, right? But sometimes they don't have that. And so everybody needs somebody that is not like amazed by that.
For those that don't,
superheroes.
For those that don't have somebody to bounce ideas off of, that's where the business coach or any kind of coach.
I was just going to say that's where a mentor or a coach
comes into play.
I mean,
or a mentor, or a mentor. I mean, we have a business coach. I have a personality coach. We have,
shocker, huh?
We have a marketing coach, and then we also have mentors. So, the National Association of Residential Property Managers has been really kind to us And I have about 5 or 6 really close people that I call and I'll ask, what I'm doing, is this correct? Is this right? How would you do it? And so those are the people that really, especially if you don't have a partnership, those people become invaluable.
Yeah, and not only that, just to speak on that, the relationships we have, some of those close friends of ours, they're local competitors here in Houston. I mean, we'll actually call them and say, hey, we're thinking of doing this. What are your thoughts? Or give me some feedback, and they'll tell us, and it's not, we're not in competition with other people. So, for people out there that are small, that maybe they say they can't afford a mentor or a coach, you can have a mastermind group of your own in your own regional area, or, across the country, of people maybe like-sized properties of size, and say, okay, we're 1 to 2 years old. What are common challenges? Because one thing that Pete and I learned is, the problems and challenges that you have at 200 doors, you don't even know what's going to exist at 300 and 400 doors, let alone 1,000 or 2,000 doors. So you don't even know what's coming around the table that's coming down the bend for you. You don't even know what's going to happen. And if you don't have anyone to bounce ideas or coaches, I mean, our business coach, we wouldn't even be in business today if it wasn't for our business coach, because there's things like, you just think of like employee challenges with, here we have Texas Workforce Commission. So you fire someone, what's the legal obligation to that? It's like, I never thought of those things. So those are the things that I would say is talking to you, Jason, all the knowledge and information, that's invaluable. I mean, what does it cost people not to have you? That's my question. People say, oh, that costs too much money. It's like, what does it cost if you go out of business? It's all worth nothing, and that's how people always look at the worst case scenario of what's going to cost you. Like people I say, like, I can't believe you guys spend that much money for a business coach. I mean, Pete and I
just using the word cost, versus what we say,
invest.
We use invest, right? We invest in a business coach. We invest in sales training. We invest in personality coaches. So just them using that language shows that they're not ready to invest in themselves. Tony Robbins, he coined that term modeling. So if you want to be like somebody, you have to get to know somebody. So if you're at 100 doors and you want to get to 200 doors, go find somebody who's running 200 doors and start modeling yourself. This way you don't have to rebuild the rebuild the wheel.
When we first started, we talked to a guy that had 1,200 doors, and we said, hey, do you mind if we come out for a couple days and check out your operation? And he said, absolutely. So we went out to his operation, we sat around, and he basically told us everything that we needed to do. Maybe he thought these guys will do it or they won't do it, but we left with a plan.
But how many mistakes do you overcome by doing that, by learning from somebody else's mistakes?
Yeah, that was huge. I mean, so the guys out there that are trying to go, and people from your community, Jason, I've talked to several guys on there that I've actually talked to on the phone that they've asked me questions, and if I got time and I can chat with them, I'll BS and give them my thoughts. Right, wrong, or indifferent, at least it's giving them food for thought that hopefully they walk away saying, okay, different way to look at it. Maybe I agree, maybe I don't, but at least it's another perspective. And I've got no skin in the game, whether they are successful or not. I want them to be successful, but it's not like I have a hidden agenda,
Yeah, you'll be surprised how many people will give you time for free. A mentorship. And also, if you're, again, smaller, you have vendors. Those vendors are probably business owners themselves. Great way to do a mastermind group. You take 3 or 4 vendors, you create a mastermind group, you hold each other accountable, and you meet, every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever. 2 cheap ways to really, get bounce ideas off of other like-minded people.
The vendors can refer business to you as well. So
absolutely, because at the end of the day, they're business owners, you're business owners. I mean, like I said, we're good friends with people here in Houston, and people go like, I can't believe you're friends with those guys. You guys are direct. I mean, we literally are direct competitors. Like they leave, and my salespeople are right at the house right behind them. But at the end of the day, it's like Chevy and Ford, Chevy and Ford. It's just business. It's not a personal thing. And they have things that they probably want to know about us, and we want to know about them. And as long as you're not sharing trade secrets of what you're doing, you just talk about overall business. It really is helpful, and you'd be surprised at how many people will share their information. And
I will say though, finding a mentor in a different market, they will share a lot more. People share in Houston, but you have to keep some of the stuff close to the vest.
Yeah. But like Jason, what you do, that's a whole other world of what when it comes to marketing. We're big believers in marketing. We invest a lot of money. I have a whole marketing team and a sales team, and we have the resources that we invest in it. But a lot of people don't think about that. And the marketing side of what we do, by us having that footprint that we've had, And, we got called by CBS Radio and CBS TV wants to do a thing on us. We're going to be on Realty 411 magazine now and all these things because of how we handled this. But if we didn't have that marketing footprint prior to leading this, people would not know who we were. So if we didn't have the Facebook friends and everything that we were doing and the reach, we wouldn't be able to be on this probably podcast with you because nobody would know who we are. Or care who we are. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But
And we invest money in marketing dollars.
Absolutely, we invest a lot of money. The first thing that we do is we invest in marketing.
It's funny. I talked to several. I had several calls today with property managers that are losing more doors than they're getting on right now, just due to the market, due to sales. And what's funny is they talk about spending all this money on marketing, and I say if you're spending your money on marketing effectively, it's an investment. It always pays you back. It always pays you more. Otherwise, it's not real marketing. It's failing, right? And it's the same thing with a coach. People go out and we're expecting people to invest in our business, like give us their properties, give us money, pay us. And if you're not willing to at least invest something in yourself, if everything goes into the business, everything goes to your team, and you don't invest into the business, you don't invest into yourself, it's really difficult to have the confidence to tell others that they should be investing in you as well.
I mean, that's a great example. I mean, we use, I don't know if you're familiar with Grant Cardone, but my salespeople, they're all required. We have them in Grant Cardone University that we pay for, and they're required to do those modules every day. And that's non-negotiable. And I mean, we're investing money in them to give them a skill, but at the end of the day, they're going to be that much more successful for the company. But I mean, we believe that much in self-development that we're saying, look, not only are we paying for it, but it's part of our core values of who we are as people. And you're either going to do that or you don't belong in this company because you're not believing in what we're doing. So I totally agree. And if you're sitting there saying we invest in this and we want you to invest in our company by giving us your property, but we don't really invest in ourselves, you're just being a hypocrite, in my opinion.
I'd like to add, if you are on the smaller side, the best investment you can make is investment in yourself. Because let's say you manage 150 doors. Well, you don't have the skill set to manage 5,000 doors, maybe not even 500 doors. I can tell you the skill sets that I had or that I needed when Steve and I first started and we were managing 60 doors, and the skill set that I have today at 700 doors were different. And the company would have outgrown. And at times it has outgrown, it had to catch up. But it's a self-investment that allows you to continue to grow. Your company is only going to grow to the amount that you grow yourself.
And just case in point, we're doing a big expansion. We're opening offices here in Houston, and we're going to be doing some licensing in other states and stuff like that. And one thing our business coach told us is he said, you guys have to realize that when you guys get over $10 million in revenue, everything that you've created up until this point will break. Nothing will work. You will have to redo your whole company for systems and operations and everything. It's going to be a whole new company post 10 million in revenue. So we're sitting there thinking, like, isn't it just supposed to keep adding and expanding? And now he tells us that. We're thinking we're just basically walking into this huge storm that we know we're going to walk into. And just because you're making that much revenue doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be a good thing, in the sense of having to basically restructure your whole company. And they said every system you have will fail when you get to that size. And so that's something that you don't think about.
We're looking forward to breaking our systems.
Yeah, we are looking forward to breaking the systems. But it's not something that we would ever think is on the radar. And if we didn't have a business coach or a mentor, we would never be opening operations in Dallas, and we would never be looking at doing licensing of our company.
We wouldn't have the doors that we have today.
We wouldn't have the door. Yeah, we wouldn't have anything. So the people say, like, why you spend that money on a business coach, or I can't afford a business coach. And our thing is you can't afford not to have a coach. If you don't have a coach, how much are you losing? Like you had said about the marketing people that when they're losing marketing. My question that I always ask people is what is your cost? If you do marketing, what's your acquisition cost per lead? What's your acquisition cost per client? And more importantly, what's your acquisition cost per marketing strategy? And the look on their faces, and it's not just here. When I was in Australia speaking, I was asking them the same questions, and it was just blank faces. And these were owners of big companies, and nobody could answer that question. And I said, so how do you know what's working and what's not working? And how do you know if it makes sense to continue this marketing program that you're doing? And I know we're getting off subject, we get on a tangent, but it's just interesting that
you have them back for marketing.
Yeah,
he'll spend another hour
on marketing thing. But if you don't know, if you don't have a business coach, like the questions you ask, I'm sure, Jason, you ask a lot of questions that you probably get some blank stares that they don't know the answers to. And maybe sometimes they don't want to know the answer to because they don't want to face the fact that what they're doing isn't working. And, kind of bringing this back to the storm thing, if what we were doing wasn't working, it would have come out during the storm. I mean, it really would have, we would have basically had at some level of implosion, but instead it went the other way. And like you'd said, we've gotten publicity and we got the TV and we got the radio, and we got a commercial and all this other things because of the fact that we were strategically set up correctly.
We picked up like 10 new clients during the storm.
Yeah, during the storm, we picked up new people.
So let's tie this together. So here's the thing. A lot of people watching this might be thinking, well, I'm never going to have, a tornado or an earthquake or a hurricane in my area, or, this might not happen to me. But in property management, there are always, and in business, there's always a catastrophe waiting to happen. You could get audited. You could, you could have a business partner embezzle. Like, there's always something that could happen, and you're always liable. You could have a lawsuit. And so what you guys really have set up since the beginning is this ability to make quick shifts and to adapt to what's going on in the business. And rather than stay comfortable. And I'm guessing that both of you are the type of guys that probably have morning routines. You have programs that you do. You have stuff that you're tackling each day. You have objectives. You have targets. And if people are listening to this and they're just coasting along, there is an inevitable catastrophe coming. Because what
you just don't know it yet.
If you are not proactive, if you are not taking a proactive approach to your life, then there is a fire that's going to start. There's a catastrophe that's going to happen. It's going to happen either in your business, or it's going to happen in your marriage if you're not investing there. It's going to happen in your health if you're not investing there. There was a day where I couldn't even work because my back had gone out because I wasn't taking care of myself. I was working too hard, too many hours. And it was this wake-up call, because then business went away. I wasn't showing up in my marriage then. I wasn't being a dad then. I wasn't useful to anybody because I let one of those slip. And so you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself physically every day, emotionally every day, connecting with the people that matter to you, mentally every day that you're investing, gaining knowledge, and that you're also spiritually or intuitively or whatever that looks like for you, creating some power for yourself and connecting to that inner voice that we call deep down. Deep down inside, I feel like I should do this. Deep down inside, I feel like so we need to make sure that we're investing in all these areas, because if we're not, we're just waiting for a catastrophe, and any one of those can derail you, and it will derail the business. It will derail anything that you're connected to, because they're all tethered together. And so, and I want people to understand, I don't just believe in coaching and say that I believe it and offer to help people in their businesses. I also make sure that I get coached. So I think that's a hallmark, that if you're working with a coach that doesn't believe in coaching, and you can know that just by saying, what coaches do you have right now? I have a Facebook coach, I have a Profit First accountant coach, and I have a business coach, and I'm spending probably between those and training programs and whatnot, at least $50K a year. Yeah. And my wife looks at these things sometimes, right? And she says, why are you spending so much money? I say, because we wouldn't be making nearly as much money if I wasn't spending so much money. And so I view that as just as important as having team members, just as important as doing marketing, because you need something objective, something outside yourself that's going to challenge you to do things that you wouldn't do just on your own.
Well,
I believe. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I believe we have what's called a default future. And you know what that is because you can look at where you were a year ago. And you can look at your business, you can look at other property management companies that couldn't deal with this disaster. And that's where maybe you would have been 2 years ago, you said. And your default future, the way to escape a default future, because even if you have a business partner, you eventually work into kind of a state of equilibrium, a state of groupthink. And getting a coach outside of that then allows you to break free from that. Now you have the advantage that it takes longer to get to that space than if you're one person. But yeah, you want to make sure that you avoid getting into this situation in which you're the emperor with no clothes. You've got a team around you that says yes and thinks you're awesome, and you're on a train that's headed for a cliff, right? And so make everybody listen, make sure you're investing in yourself, investing in the things that really matter to you, and that you're creating the space to do the things you really enjoy and giving up the things that you don't enjoy. You're offhanding that. So Steve and Pete, what other takeaways do you feel like, in wrapping this up, you want to share with people that are in property management companies? Maybe they're thinking, hey, this might not even be relevant to me, or they are concerned about something coming down the pike that they can see. What last takeaway would you want to share?
I'll talk more on the disaster side of things, and I'll let Steve talk on the bigger picture side of things. I think number one is look at a voice over IP system if you're not on one. Look at having some assistance elsewhere so that you can keep your business going. And also just have a communication plan for your residents, your vendors, and your owners before the storm hits. And of course, for your teammates. I think if you do that and then just create a structured approach on how you're going to eat the elephant, as we say.
Yeah, and I would say that the biggest takeaway that we got that proved to work was, first of all, speed. Speed is the key. Velocity, getting that thing moving as quickly as possible. Don't overthink it. Just do it. Get it done. Like, our landing page for Harvey, it's not pretty, but it's up and it's functional and people are going to it. So be a leader and get out there as quick as you can, and definitely over communicate. I don't think in any disaster you should ever under communicate with your clients, meaning your tenants and your owners. And I would also suggest that you've got to remember that both sides, tenants and owners in a disaster, there's a lot of emotions flying. And they may say things that they don't mean, and you may say things you don't mean, but you have to remember you're running a business, they're not. They should be, but they're not always. The tenants are just wanting a place to live. So you have to make sure that there has to be some empathy involved between the owners and the tenants given the situation. And we found the best way to do that is just to have a communication and talk to the owners and talk to the tenants and be solution based. Have a solution. Don't just talk about the problem. Those would be the things that I would say. Lose him? You there, Jason?
I think we lost him.
I think we lost him. Any questions for us from the fans? I don't see any.
No.
No.
None. Give him a minute to get back on, but we have a 4 o'clock. We got to jump on.
Do we?
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and
Jump on it?
Yeah.
All right.
I'll let you
Well,
know the aftermath.
I'm not sure if he's coming back or not. You text me. Hey, there you are.
All right.
I lost you there.
Let me see if I can hear you. Are you there?
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I tried calling my phone and it killed my headphones. All right. So, Steve, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been awesome having you and Pete here sharing with us. How can people connect with you and find out more about Empire Industries?
Yeah, obviously you go to our Facebook page, Empire Industries LLC. Again, we share everything. We don't hold back. So anything you want, steal it, borrow it, grab it. Also, go to our website, empireindustriesllc.com. You can go to our, obviously we have a Hurricane Harvey page for the people in Florida. You may want to create one of those coming up for you guys. But also go to our blog page. I probably do 2 to 3 video blogs every week that get pushed out on our blog page for owners, tenants, and agents. And again, it's just great information. You start becoming the trusted individual. So as a property manager, marketing, Jason, we're huge in that. So get some things from there. Steal them, borrow them. I don't really care. If you want some advice, you can give me a call. You can call our office 888-866-6727, or just go to our website empireindustriesllc.com, and you can get a hold of me there. But if anybody wants any advice or help, from Peter and myself, we're always willing to help. We do have people that come to our office and kind of see what we do, and if you want to, just give us a call and let us know. We'd be glad to help.
Awesome. Hey, I really appreciate you coming out, and I'll let you get back to your day.
Yeah, we got a 4 o'clock team leader meeting, so right now to get updates. So that's why Pete pulled out.
All right. I appreciate you taking the time to update everybody.
No problem. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jason.
You bet.